Yo, what's up everybody, it's Tuna. In today's video I wanted to show you guys how to craft with Necropolis, all of the things that you need to know in general because the tools have progressed a ton since league start and of course as well since my old video. So in general, the first thing I will do is I will walk you guys through what I do for every craft, and this will be specific to, a certain piece, but it will also be applicable to anything that you want to craft in specific. We'll go through some of the processes and some of the tools that I use in order to plan my craft so that maybe you guys can also get some idea on how to craft certain things if you do want to do that. And also in general, some of the cool stuff you can do with this crafting mechanic because it's pretty damn insane. And of course, the tedious thing about it is the trading part of it. But in general, this will alleviate the planning process and the theory crafting and all that kind of stuff, which I think is like the coolest thing about the mechanic, which, eventually get to the point where you have to trade for stuff, but I digress. So we'll start with a body armor, and I will show you guys how to craft a Dex-in body armor for a Trickster, for example. So the first thing you do, you go on Craft of Exile, and you will go on the calculator, and you will select, body armor and Dex, as you saw I just did there. Then what you want to do is you want to click a graveyard, and the Craft of Exile developers have, put a lot of work into getting this to a point where it's pretty damn insane. But there's still some tweaks that you might have to do in order to actually get to the best outcome, especially since a lot of the graveyard layouts that we are using these days are occupied by some of the additional crafts, like, for example, craft an additional item or fracture or quality and all that kind of stuff. Therefore, we will not have actually 88 available corpse slots, rather probably have to narrow it down to about 50. In order to do that, you have to kind of look through the priority list of what crafts need to be on there and what crafts are sort of more expendable. And there's actually quite an easy way to do that. So in general, what we'll do here is we will set up the craft that we want to see. So what do we want from this body armor? We want to have T1 energy shield and evasion. And then we want to have T1 hybrid energy shield and evasion because this is what's gonna give us the highest amount of ES. So this T1 hybrid as well as T1%. So first thing you'll do is T1%, T1 hybrid, and then flat, of course, which is gonna be right over here. So that is triple T1. Essentially, at this point, you will see that it is practically impossible to be hitting this craft. Now, the best way to actually go about these crafts these days is to have 3 affixes on your item, and then to fracture all 3 of them. And you, of course, cannot guarantee that you will be fracturing 3 of the affixes, as most items will roll with 4 affixes, and that is the only way to really get high odds at actually finishing your item. So we will select these 3 first. And then at this point, what we want to do is we want to make sure they are on different mod groups. So this means that they will be like individual tiers essentially. So you want to have this mod, therefore it's on 1. If you want to have this mod 2, then for it's a 2, and etc. This is on 3. But for example, if you wanted to have either or, evasion or flat ES, you could go like this, and what this would mean is that the crafting simulator will try to look for a scenario in which you want to roll either or of these mods. But yeah, putting them in separate groups will make that so that it guarantees that you are looking for these separate mods and that you want them to roll on your item. So at this point that we have sort of determined which affixes we want to roll on the item, we can click the compute best selection, which is going to basically simulate crafting this item X amount of times by also looking at the different stats that you want to increase as well as the stats that you want to decrease in order to get, the highest possible chance of rolling this item. So we'll go through and it will compute everything, and then you'll end up at a X amount of corpses, right? So now we have a 97% chance to generate this chess piece if we were to use all 88 corpses. And you can click here, generate item, and you can see that we are getting, these modifiers showing up pretty much every time that we click this button. But the problem is, as I said earlier, is that we do not have a full 88 grave slots available. And thankfully, the Craft of Exile devs have actually put this slider in here that is able to sort of like, you're able to go up and down to sort of get less corpses on there in comparison to where if you were up to here. You can see that the chance of it goes from like 97 And if you go lower it down, it goes to like 89, right? So doubling the amounts of corpses only really gives you an extra 10% chance to roll the item that you want because of just how insanely powerful these crafts are. So what that allows us to do is it allows us to sort of add extra meta crafts into our craft. Like for example, if you wanted to add influence, or if you wanted to add fractures or additional duplicates and all that kind of stuff. So this is really nice to know, and also a really nice way to display it. However, if you want to craft an item with 4 affixes, this is where the explicit modifier comes in. But since we only want to have, 3 prefixes and 1 suffix at most, we want to really try to focus in on getting those defense rolls fractured on there. We do not want to be rolling 5 explicit modifiers. By default, an item will roll with 4 explicit modifiers, and this is going to be adding an extra 1. But what we want to do here is we want to lower that to 4. So by doing that, you will see a pretty decent drop off in the percentage chance to roll this item. But by generating the item now, you will see that you will go from having 5 modifiers to 4 instead. If I was to add this again, you can see that now we have 5 modifiers that are always rolling on our item. And if we take that down by 1, now we have 4 modifiers every time, no matter what. Now you can also reduce it by 1. However, that will also drastically reduce the odds of you hitting the mods that you want, because in many cases, you will also get suffixes, like here, for example, percent defense suffix, and that one is going to be rolling, so you can't really be guaranteeing that you'll be getting the prefixes fractured, right? So yeah, at this point in time, we have 4 affixes that are rolling on our item, and since we are crafting 4 additional of those items, thankfully with the metacrafts, we have like a 1 in 4 chance of fracturing the 3 modifiers that we want. And because of that, we are crafting a total of 5. It pretty much comes to a very close, high percentage chance of getting at least 1 base with the 3 fractured modifiers that you want by doing so. So another thing to look for here on the total, the total effect of selected modifiers and the graves and stuff like that is that there are cases where you don't actually necessarily need all of this modifier tier rating. And the way that you can tell is simply by going here and modifying this. And as you modify it, you will see that, for example, here you get like the tiers that will show. And the more you lower them, the more you will see the tiers start to come in. So if you scroll all the way down here, you can see T1, T1, T1. And if I keep lowering this down, there will be T2, T1, and T2. Meaning that you have to find the sweet spot of how many modifier tier ratings you want to put in here. So in the case of this craft specifically, we need at the very least 700 plus to all modifier tier rating in order to hit T1 on all of our energy shield rolls. So if you were to go below 700 modifier tier rating, this would mean that you do not guarantee all of these to be tier 1. Instead, there will be a possibility of them rolling T2. So you want to absolutely make sure that you are hitting the bare minimum of modifier tier rating to make sure that there is no small chance of it actually ever rolling T2. And that is pretty much it. That is all you really need to know about Craft of Exile and how to plan your crafts. So all you do is you essentially select the modifiers that you want here first, and then you want to put them on different tier groups, and then you compute best selection, and at that point you will drag the slider back X amount of crafts to then also min-max the amount of explicit modifiers as well as the tier rating on them too. But the next step is where it gets really interesting, because now you think to yourself, well, how do I actually plan my craft now, and how do I put it in practice, like aka in game? Because we have an 86% chance of hitting the modifiers that we want, and we are guaranteed to have all T1s and all that kind of stuff. So how do we put this in game? Now this is where you would go and you would copy this URL right here at the very top, which is basically just your Craft of Exile URL. And you would open this tool, which I will link in the description, called the necropolis.pathoftools.com. So this is like a pretty damn amazing tool that was developed by someone in the community who is an absolute gigachad, honestly. And this is helping us plan out our crafts in game very, very efficiently. So there are also a bunch of presets here that I can show you guys. So there's a few presets here, and I really, really like this last one here with the add items, which you can click, because this one has a very simple layout that you guys can follow, and it doesn't require that many adjacent crafts. So adjacent crafts are sort of the bane of our existence, they are the ones that you see right here. And these adjacent crafts, what they do is they give you 40% power to crafts that are adjacent to it. And since these 20% add are about 2 divines each to purchase, right? These are about 2 to 3 divines each at the time of recording. These are the ones that you really want to be min-maxing. So what you want to do here is you want to be grabbing, I will give an example. These ones, 40% increased adjacent power of, for example, humanoid corpses. So that means that you will have to get monsters of humanoid variety to fit into these slots. And on average, you will need 8 of these 20% add. So it's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Mistake. You need 9 of these 20% additional adds, and you need 7 of these 40% adjacents. And then you want to make sure that these 9 crafts are all of the same monster category, as well as these adjacents giving you increased power to that specific monster category. At that point, then you want to be grabbing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 rows, as well as 3 columns. And these are all the meta mods that you will need to purchase for this craft. But in cases where you actually do want to get 100% chance to fracture 3 modifiers, which is what we're looking to do on this craft, what you will do is you will go here and you'll swap to the paint section here, and then you will to fracture. You'll have fracture on there, and then what you can do is you can just drag that on along. So what paint does is paint basically lets you like drag something along, and it makes you copy that over, whereas swap will make it sort of like swap the two together, and move will basically just move this here or there, and it will overwrite that kind of stuff, right? So just to go back to what we were doing, we want to make sure that this is actually there as well. Okay, cool. And since I want to be actually having 3 fractured modifiers on my item, what I will want to look for is a 300% chance to fracture modifier. And you can see that I'm at a 75% chance. So I will just go through and put these all on the 1.0s because these are actually really, really cheap and you can buy them for like 15 chaos or something like that. And what I will do is I will stack these up to the point where I have a 300% chance to fracture. So I will just go through, put these all on the 1.0s. So now we're 287. I will potentially also just move this one to another 1.25, like that, as well as another one here. So now we're actually at 349. So take this down like this. And potentially also we're able to drop one more. But it's a 293% chance. That is pretty much as close as you can get it. But if I was actually to move this one over here and move this one rather over here, and we just need to get one more fractured in there, which you could put from here to there. Perfect. All right, so now we have a 300% chance to fracture modifiers. Now you can go a little bit under or a little bit over, but there's still now a 6% chance to fracture a 4th modifier, meaning it's really unlikely to do that. But if you wanted to make absolutely sure that you only had a 300% chance, then you could put them on all the 1.0s. So that's kind of like what I prefer doing. So just putting an exact 300% chance of fracture on there. And of course, now you can kind of like save this as a preset. So what I would do at this point is I would just make sure that this is saved, and I would do 300% additional, so 400% additional, and 300% fracture. And this I would sort of save as my own little loadout. You can see that here I now have this loaded up here, along with some of my other crafts. And anytime I sort of like reopen this website, if I was to open it in a new tab, now imagine this like didn't have all of the stuff already pre-remembered on there. I could basically load up my my loadout here and overwrite this graveyard, boom. And what it would do is it would load up that loadout, and I could just basically import anything into it. But at this point, now is where we can take our Craft of Exile link, and we could import that directly into here. At the top right, you can see that there's this little import thingy here, and we click Craft of Exile, and we import it. And the crazy thing is that this does everything for us, and it puts everything in the best possible slots on on the graveyard layout here, and it leaves all of these too, because you know all it's looking to do is it's looking to fill out the required crafts to make sure that we are getting to, you know, the highest odds of crafting this item. And you can see that we have so many slots actually available to us with such an already high chance of crafting the item that we want, because it's efficiently putting them on slots that have additional corpse power. Now, not every craft will be like this. Some crafts will actually be a lot more difficult to get this min-maxed. But for example, in this craft now, all that you need to do is you need to ensure that your craft is actually at item level 86, because these modifiers are, of course, only rolling on item level 86, as you can see here. So what you need to do for that is you need to go back on here and you need to get levels. So let's level +1 to item level, and we can drag that basically anywhere. So we want to have at least +2 to item level. And one thing that is nice to put them on is, for example, if you were to put them on 1.25, this means that there is an additional 50% chance for +1. And the graveyard is actually really nice. It makes it so that you don't exactly need to have you know, up to that point, it rounds up the item level every time. So if you have even just one item level 84 craft in your graveyard, that's going to default your craft of item level 84. And so getting an extra +2, that means that you're going to be at item level 86. But if you were to only use item level 83 crafts, then you might actually want to be getting 3 of these +1 modifiers. You can put 3 on there. We just chuck that on just to be sure that we are rolling on item level 86. And at this point also, since we do want to guarantee that our chest is rolling at 30% quality, we can chuck these here, and these are 5% each. So we'll want to get like 6 of these in there. So that's just 1. We'll put back on the paint mode. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So now we have a, you can scroll down to see exactly what it is. That is going to be rolling 34% quality, right? So you can actually like get like one. You could try to like min-max this a little better, but since we have like so many free slots, it doesn't really matter all that much. Now we have some free slots here, and we want to be increasing the percentage chance of rolling the item that we want. So one thing that you could do is you could go back to Craft of Exile, and there's actually this really insane button that is very underrated called the View Corpse Sequence. You can see that the View Corpse Sequence is kind of telling you what are the best things to add or take away at any sort of given point, and how much percentage additional chance of rolling your item they're going to be giving. You can see that modifiers are scarcer, life modifiers are scarcer, mana modifiers are scarcer. Those are the best 2 other mods to add to my craft. So I will go back here and I will do 1 mana scarcer. Mana modifiers is scarcer, and life modifiers is scarcer as well. So we can add those 2 right there. We still have 1, 2, 3 available slots. Now you go back to Craft of Exile, and what does it say after that? It says 500% increase defenses as well as life, and as well as increase defenses again. So we go 1 more life scarcer, and then 2 increase the defense. And we put those here and there. So now we have basically used up all of our corpse power and all of our slots, and we're going to have all of these increased effects that are essentially going to be pretty much guaranteeing that we roll at least 1 body armor with 3 fractured prefixes, you know, T1%, T1 hybrid, as well as T1 flat energy shield. And basically how to plan that out in this really, really handy tool. Now what I'll do here is I will rename this to T1 ES sadist garb. And then we go 3 times T1, and also fractured. All right, cool. So at this point I will click save, and now I have that saved right here at any point. And I will also be adding these to the item library here. I will be contacting the dev for that too. So if you guys want to be, you know, looking for triple T1 fractured energy shield bases, then that is how you will be able to access them, right? All right, so just to show you guys exactly what that ends up looking like in game, is you're gonna be getting a body armor like this that is going to have quality on it. This one I actually forgot to put quality on it in my craft, and I ended up adding it later. But in the case of like the gloves as well as the boots, I actually ended up putting quality on it in the Gravecraft itself so that it would roll with 30% quality. But yeah, the goal here was to get the triple T1 fractured prefixes. So then I could use essences to craft the suffixes from there. And it's like a really easy craft at that point. Essentially just essence, slam, until you get like the suffix that you want. So that is essentially the Gravecraft that I've just showed you guys and how to set it up and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, there's many other things that you could craft, like for example, triple T1 fractured energy shield gloves or triple fractured boots as well. And you can basically be doing this same process with any craft that you want to be doing. Just walk through the process of going from Craft of Exile and then importing that directly into the Necropolis Path of Tools. And then finally actually putting that in game, which is unfortunately the most tedious thing. But another really nice thing of the Path of Tools tool that we have here is the fact that you also, if you scroll down, you have access to this here, which is going to be our list of things that we have. So you can go through your stash and say like, oh, I already have like 12 of these or whatever, and you can check that off. Or you can just click bought or something like that. You can keep track of all of the things that you need to look for. And so if I was to actually go and click the trade link as well, see that people are listing these at a certain price. You want to make sure that of course these are filtered at item level A3, but luckily that is already all done through the tool, and it's like super handy, and you can just like basically click the trade link, go here and buy any of those. Remember that you can also buy these in bulk, right? So one thing that I like to do is to go here and like look for fractured as well. And if you look for fractured and say that I was to need like 12 of these fractures, you can go for stock count 12 and make sure that you are selecting chaos, because otherwise you get some weirdos listing for way too expensive. And yeah, you can see that there's some people like listing for 20 chaos, 30 chaos, etc. And you just like put that up to 13, however many you want to buy, and you whisper them until somebody replies. You are paying a bit more for bulk, but it saves you actually having to whisper people one by one, so that's really nice. And yeah, you can go through and you can do that for basically everything here. But as I said at the beginning, you need to be really careful about the adjacent crafts, because the adjacent crafts need to all be of the same monster type. And yeah, if you mess that up, then there's a potential for you to potentially actually get 4 additional crafts, which might be a shame, because in many cases you actually do need to have those extra crafts in order to minimize the amount of time you spend trading and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think this tool is really, really good. It's amazing. And there's also a little sort of manual that I can share with you guys as well, that was written by the dev himself, on basically how to use Path of Tool, the basics, the key features, and all that kind of stuff. Now, if you guys have any feedback for this tool, like as you use it and stuff like that, you guys can actually leave comments in this YouTube video. And I will actually like forward those to the developer. He's really keen and also very receptive to feedback as well. And I'm just really, really happy that we have these very talented, these crazy developers that are putting in all this like backend as well as front end work into making tools for us to use for Path of Exile. And it's really a privilege to be able to also present these to you guys, and really makes the game so much more fun. Because it takes a lot of the tedium away from what would otherwise be a pretty fucked up mechanic. So yeah, I hope you found this video a little bit helpful. I did definitely, maybe this is a very niche video, but I think some people might actually find these tools helpful. And hopefully yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good one.